We want to talk about the Overton window shifting. Well, RFK Jr. is going to have his Senate confirmation hearing on Wednesday, and it's on the right, not the left. And everybody is very excited about this. But on X, this prompted me to ask you the question. If you could ask RFK Jr. one question during his confirmation hearing, what would it be? One of our colleagues, Rob Eno, replied, could you explain how mRNA technology works and why you are troubled by it in plain English? We are definitely going to need the in plain English part because he would get deep into the weeds on that one.
I mean, the first part of this, though, is that it was such a fraught conversation because the honest interpretation of what we just went through was, are you saying the right thing about the mRNA vaccine? Right. I hope you're not questioning it in any way.
YouTube censors are coming down right now on us.
If you're not on, you are a better person than I am, and you're not on social media, God bless you, and you didn't experience this, everyone was censored. I mean, your personal account, media companies like Blaze, and it was, you have to say the right thing about the mRNA vaccine, which, there's valid just concerns like, okay, does it leave something? I'll speak in plain English, right? But it may not be medically accurate, the kind of thing people think. Are you going to leave something in me, right? Is there stuff there? Is it safe? Like, what is it doing in terms of changing parts of my body? You couldn't say those kinds of things or intimate them because that was being a conspiracy theorist.
Well, and it reminds me of Chris Cizilla on X yesterday, who was like, oh, well, actually, I now see that because the CIA has come out and said that COVID-19 actually was a lab leak, I guess I'll go along with it now. And he's like, but look, at the time, was I going to believe Donald Trump, who was just, a former reality TV star, or Anthony Fauci, who's the guy who knew all this? And we're like, but you realize how stupid that looks now. And you fell for it.
But notice, Jill, like the arbiter of truth for Chris and these mainstream journalists is the CIA. I mean, the CIA changed its position, and now they say, so we know what the truth is. Like, okay, well, why do I need a journalist?
So far behind.
Maybe I should just get CIA press releases, and then I'll just know the truth. I don't need the middleman. Chris, really? Like, is that how? But that is exactly how mainstream media has worked for the last 8 years. Well, the CIA said, the FBI said, and therefore we know because we're all on the same team. Absolutely ridiculous. Disgusting.
Douglas reached out and he said, when does life start? It's a good question. But as we've had people on the show before, they're saying, listen, it's not going to be RFK's position. He will be out there saying it's going to be whatever Trump wants in this position as the head of HHS.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is a question that is, of course, theological, philosophical, a deep question. When does life start? When does life end? Who are we? And then there's, of course, some position has to be adopted, at least in part, in any legal regime. So any time you have laws or you have any kind of country, you're going to have laws that assume something about when life begins and ends. And that is obviously a fraught question. It's one people disagree about over. And so I don't know whether he wants us to give a philosophical argument. I think life begins at conception. I think in some way you have to accept that as a biological fact. And then when does it end is another question. But this is a question that you cannot avoid as a society, and it's a really important one that we continue to debate because acting like it's not important and so much as doesn't depend on it is ridiculous.
Crankier Hank replied, Mr. Kennedy, how can we trust you to run the federal government's healthcare system when you insist on lifting in jeans? Listen, I will give him a complete pass. Have you seen who is running the healthcare system right now in the country? Or, well, not anymore, thankfully. But a few days ago, it was a much worse situation. And, if he's out there in 70 plus lifting in jeans, sometimes you just got to work out when you got to work out.
I mean, I think he knows he looks good lifting in jeans, and that's why he wants to do it. And that's okay. That is at this point, that's a qualification, not a downside in my mind. He can lift in jeans. It's all right. I don't know, if he's going to do that very often in jeans in front of the public when he's in charge. But it was clearly a publicity stunt, but it was solid work on the part of.
It worked, and I know several people that actually ended up printing out RFK's face and putting it on their fridge, and he says, don't eat that. Because, sometimes it was around the holidays, and they just said, we can't just give in to our every indulgence because RFK Jr. might be out here waiting to make America healthy again.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that as an image, right? He actually is physically lifting like that in at his age. I think that's actually really important today, in ways that really can't be calculated after we've had so many people who are very strange in some of these positions. I mean, that's people want that authenticity. And think about the kind of conversations. You look at all these questions we just answered. The kind of conversations that are going to come out as he goes about his business and job. There's going to be a reevaluation of mRNA vaccines. That conversation is going to happen. People are going to be talking about health in ways that they haven't in the past, and they weren't allowed to in the past. And that is a good thing for our country because it allows for conversation that's needed so you can all decide how you should best live your life.
Well, Doc Peterson, take us down here for the closing lesson of the day. We want to talk a little bit about separation of powers and how those are important.
Yeah, so I think it's a good time as we look at everything going on in the administration to remind ourselves at the large level that separation of powers is absolutely key to American government. And what I mean by that is there's three branches of government, the legislative, Congress, judiciary, the courts, and the executive, the presidency. And those three branches should be in healthy tension with each other. The intention was never that it's like some kind of anti all the time. It's just that there should be some healthy tension between the three branches so that power eventually moves in one way, but is checked continually. The problem we have now is that, as many of you already know, Congress doesn't work. Congress really doesn't legislate very much at all. They pass these large omnibus bills every so often. They don't actually pass budgets. They don't deliberate over the laws and the budgets that they pass. So why don't they deliberate, right? Well, that's because over the last 100 years, we have seen the rise of a bureaucracy that Congress created. Congress passed laws to create these agencies and departments that are full of experts and people who are supposed to regulate and adjudicate all areas of complicated modern America life. And the argument for it was we needed these experts because things are very complicated and convoluted. New technology is rising over the last century. The population is growing. And the idea was we're going to help organize all of this as we grow government and we grow these departments. But at some point, those departments became the arbiters of what the law should be. They own Congress. And the extent to which they own Congress is really shameful. It's the sort of thing that some of you out there probably would not believe. I mean, the intelligence agencies are so powerful because they keep Congress in check. Many people who are on the committees that are supposed to regulate the intelligence committees, they're kept human beings. These agencies have become permanent. They have become powerful, and they rule the roost, right? So how do you inject some power back into Congress? How do you get Congress to rev up again and people in Congress to take ownership? How do you make Congress great again? Well, let me suggest that one of the central answers to this question of revitalizing constitutional government in America is something that you're seeing play out every day right now, and that is a strong executive. Nothing is going to resurrect a dead Congress that's a creature of this administrative state better than a strong executive who comes out and starts just wrecking house on that administrative state, that bureaucracy. Remember, the entire bureaucracy is supposed to be underneath the President of the United States. But over the last 100 years, they've made it so the president can't fire everyone who he's technically in charge of, right? They have all kinds of protections and civil service and special commissions and committees and adjacent entities, so that you have this colossus and at the top, the president can get rid of the top of the pyramid, the appointed people, but everyone else he can't fire, right? They protected themselves against that. So the president comes in and starts saying, no, I am going to go after all of you. I'm going to pass all these executive orders. I'm going to say, you can't do this, you can't do that. I'm going to start acting as CEO of this thing that by right, the Constitution says all executive power is vested with me, the president. I should be in charge of. I'm going to act that way, which is what Trump has started to do, right? If you do that, then guess what happens next? Congress starts to resurrect. How? How does the lifeblood through for Congress? Well, the administrative state, right? The people who really rule things are going to go to Congress and go, my gosh, you can't let this happen. Like, the president is a tyrant. They're doing that. You have to take action. You need to do something about this. What if the president did this, which he should absolutely do in the coming year? The president takes an oath to the Constitution. The president has, just like the Supreme Court and just like every member of Congress, but the president can interpret the Constitution and must in order to defend it. The president should say large swaths of the administrative state are unconstitutional delegations of power. You're not passing laws. You're letting these agencies, right, pass laws by regulating. No one's in charge of them. You're not in charge of them. Well, guess what? I'm in charge of them, but I actually declare them unconstitutional. I'm going to regard them as if they don't exist, right? And it gets complicated, but you need to make that argument. What's going to happen? Congress is going to go, I don't know, this is very extreme. And then Congress's masters, the bureaucrats, are going to go, oh, the sky is falling and you better do something about this, right? Thus making the two fight. That is the kind of thing that will breathe life into the system, and it's why conflict is not necessarily bad. It can actually resurrect and revive the United States of America.
Professor Peterson, it's like you've done this before.
Yeah, I had lots of practice with minds full of mush, as Rush would say, once upon a time in the classroom, in another lifetime. But this is the kind of stuff that we're all interested in now, and we all we need to go back and think about so that we can support the right things moving forward, because everyone here is called to know this stuff now. We all have to be citizens together.
You were talking about the budget. That just came into my mind because the House is down there in Florida right now. And guess what? We don't have a budget anymore. We just have CRs that we continuously pass. March 14th, I believe, is the next deadline. So we might be having some more fun. We thought we could only have that over Christmas. No, this year, kids, we get it again in March.
Woohoo! Yes. Just think about the fact that we haven't passed a budget. I mean, it's
we
the
don't even do
craziest
that.
thing.
Like,
20 plus years, 25 years now, we haven't passed a budget.
You're like, separation of powers. We're going to get to the heart of the matter. And I'm like, hey, can we just pass a budget? Can we just make it a simple thing?
This is why extreme
fund the
measures are
government.
needed. Like you have to have a president who starts throwing punches.